Hi, welcome to my channel Cloud with Girish. On March 4th, 2025, AWS added support for CloudWatch log livetail for Lambda in VS Code. One thing I will call out that CloudWatch livetail is not a new feature. However, tailing this log in VS Code for a selected Lambda function is the new feature added. In this video, I will demonstrate the steps required to configure and use the CloudWatch livetail feature in VS Code. Let's take a look at a standard design for CloudWatch log. We can have Lambda, EC2 or other services that can publish the logs in CloudWatch. CloudWatch logs can have a filter pattern and you can have a live tailing of that log. That is an existing feature. However, with this new announcement, we can actually use the live tail in the VS Code, and that is the new addition. So this live tail, we can specify a pattern or we can live tail the entire log in the VS Code IDE. So let's look at the prerequisite for this. We need to have VS Code IDE installed with the AWS Toolkit extension. We need an AWS account with IAM permissions. We need AWS CLI configured, and we need a Lambda function deployed in AWS Cloud. So with this, I'm not building a new Lambda function. The prerequisite is that there is already a Lambda function which is in AWS Cloud, and this Lambda function can publish the log to the CloudWatch. Let's get started. We're going to look at an intro to livetail for Lambda in VS Code. We'll look at the steps to install the toolkit and then how to connect VS Code to AWS, and then the new feature of enabling the live log tail. We'll invoke the Lambda function and then see that live log tail in action. Okay. So introduction, like I stated, it's a fairly new feature. On March 4, 2025, AWS announced support for livetail for Lambda in VS Code, and this feature allows developers to monitor function execution in real time. Since an IDE is where the code resides when you are developing, so having the ability to view logs without leaving the IDE is a productivity enhancing capability. So as a developer, you are right there, and you can, when you execute the function, you can view the live tail of the log. So this feature improves the debugging support and enhance overall development efficiency. Let's look at the AWS Toolkit. So AWS Toolkit is a VS Code extension, and this toolkit supports many features like connecting with AWS account and services like S3, Lambda, and others. So I will first configure this toolkit. To configure AWS Toolkit, you start your VS Code IDE, you go to the extension. If you are using VS Code, likely you are very familiar with the how to add an extension. So just look for AWS Toolkit and install it. Now, once this extension is installed, configure the extension by adding AWS credential. Now that you have the AWS Toolkit, if this is your first time setting up the AWS Toolkit, you need to select a profile to connect to your AWS account. So click on AWS profile and ensure that correct region is selected. So you will see multiple region here like US East 2 or US East 1. So select your region so you know that where your Lambda function is. From there, you can enable the live log tail. So in VS Code, navigate to the AWS Explorer, locate your AWS Lambda function, and then right-click the function and select tail log. Provide a pattern to filter the log or press enter to tail all log. So it will give you an option that if you're going to specify a filter so that it only live tail the log based on the filter, or you can simply press enter and you will get all the log. So this will be the live streaming, the live tailing of the log into VS Code. So now that we have connectivity and the live tail streaming enabled, we can validate it by invoking a Lambda function that will publish log to CloudWatch log. Now, of course, if you already have a Lambda function, you likely already have a way to invoke it. Maybe you are invoking it through an API, maybe you are invoking it through the console or any other consuming app. But here I'm going to use the AWS CLI. So I have a very simple function, hello world GB, and all it does is that print a hello message. But I have also added like few logging, so it will publish the log to the CloudWatch. So I'm using the CLI AWS Lambda invoke. I'm providing the function name and I'm providing my region. So once I execute this command, observe the log in Livetail and check for logging error and other relevant detail to confirm that function is working as expected. So in my case, if you see this Livetail, and this Livetail logging is happening in the VS Code, and here I'm getting an error. It's saying, hey, the name not found. And the reason it is because name is a parameter that I'm supposed to pass to this function. But here in this example, I did not pass the payload. I simply said, hey, execute this function, and it doesn't know that name parameter. So I'm getting that error log, that name not found in the event. Now, if I try again after adding the JSON payload to the function, and I get a successful function, then I should see hello from Lambda, Girish, right? So here it's able to extract, and this is all the Livetail. So again, just a very simple demonstration that from the VS Code, I'm able to just look at my log. So I don't have to go to the management console, go to the CloudWatch, go to the Livetail, and then look at the log. My log is right here in my VS Code IDE. We will see it in action. I'll bring my VS Code, and then I will show this function in action. So let's see it in action. I have my VS Code ID up and running here. In my VS Code, I already have the AWS Toolkit extension installed. If you don't have this extension installed, you can follow the instruction and install it from the extension. In my case, I have it installed. I have connected to my AWS account. So that is why when I go here, I can see the Lambda function in my account. And what I want to do is that I want to invoke a very simple Lambda function and demonstrate that how the Livetail logging works here. So on this function, hello world GB, I'm going to right click and I'm going to say I want to tail the log for this function. It's going to ask me that if I want to put a filter for the log or I just want to display all the logs. So I'm going to press enter, and now my Livetail is enabled in my VS Code IDE for this Lambda function. Now I can invoke this function and see if the log actually getting printed or not. There are multiple ways to invoke the Lambda function. If I can invoke it via API, I can have a consuming app. In this particular case, I'm simply using the AWS CLI to invoke the function. And so I'm passing a function name and I'm going to hit enter here. Now, when I execute this function, I expect that this function will return me some message, and then I also have some logger statement. So as you can see with the Livetail, it's showing me the error. It's saying, hey, name not found in the event. So I don't have to go back all the way to CloudWatch and the Livetail and log and then look at the error. It's right there. So now what I can do is that I can actually execute the function again, and this time I'm going to pass the JSON payload which actually has the name value which function is expecting. So now if I run this, and as you can see the function got executed, and I should expect to see another log in my Livetail because it's still tailing. And as you can see, it just showed up here. So this time it's not throwing the error unlike how I got it previous time, because I passed the name, so it's printing the log based on that value, hello Girish. So very simple example, but I just wanted to demonstrate this new feature that has been announced just March 4th, which is really just a couple days back. So this is how this feature works, and you can have the live tail right into your development IDE, which is VS Code here. So in this workshop, I demonstrated how to configure CloudWatch livetail log for an AWS Lambda function in VS Code. AWS Lambda live log tail in VS Code provides an efficient way to monitor and debug Lambda function in real time directly from the VS Code IDE. So try setting up live log tail today and experience real-time insight right in VS Code. I hope you found this tutorial both helpful and informative. I'm constantly working on new content covering various AWS topics, so please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the Cloud with Greece channel. Your support helps me continue creating valuable AWS tutorials and workshops. Stay tuned for more exciting content. Thank you.